Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back to celebrate Black History Month. 97 schools and community organizers participated in the Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action citywide. And here in studio telling us a little bit about it are two organizers of the event, Carolyn Little and Clarice Salas Ramirez. And thank you so much for coming and being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for the invite.
Good. So talk to us about this. You got into the school system and had an opportunity to meet with some students.
Sure. So just to tell you a little bit about the Week of Action. So the Week of Action is a national movement. It's actually a coalition between educators, both classroom and community educators, community organizers, activists, artists, advocacy organizations, cultural institutions, really looking to elevate the needs and experiences of Black students and teachers across the country. It started as a day of action in Seattle about 4 years ago, then spread as a week of action by the We Caucus of Educators in Philly, and then for the past 2 years has grown to be a national movement with 20 plus cities across the United States, and New York is one of the kind of local cities participating in the Week of Action. And that week entails a combination of curriculum happening in our schools with students, a calendar of community events, which we can talk a little bit more about, and then also advocacy on 4 demands that we are proposing to kind of better the experiences of Black teachers and students.
I know one of those demands is restorative justice, so
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
So one of the things that we know is that Black and brown children are particularly targeted in schools in terms of zero tolerance disciplinary practices, right? It could be anything from I'm taking a kitchen knife from home to cut my steak for lunch to the way that they behave in the classroom. A lot of them are expelled, suspended, and lose a lot of instructional time. And so we're basically asking that we engage in restorative practices where the children have the capacity to engage in deep conversation, meaningful conversation about their own experiences, but also have perpetrators as part of those circles to talk about, this is how I felt, this is what it means to me, and can I get some sort of feedback in terms of what it is that we're going to do together as a community moving forward.
And talk to us about another one of the requests. I know another one was talking about hiring Black teachers, and that's important. What does that mean?
Sure. So right now, as it stands, about 70% of students in the school district are Black and Latinx students. And right now, Black and Latinx teachers account for about 34% of the school system. And so research has shown the importance of having Black educators and educators of color in the classroom, particularly for Black and Latino students, but really for all students across the board. The benefit has been shown for students regardless of their racial and ethnic background. And so the fight is to really push our Department of Education to recognize the value of Black educators in the classroom and make a concerted effort to really make sure that there's recruitment, that there's support and retention in place to make sure that those teachers are able to be successful in the classroom, because the impact on students has been shown. And right now, overwhelmingly, students of color are not seeing teachers who look like them in the classroom. We have over 40,000 students who are going through their educational career in their K-12 space without ever once having a Black teacher. 1 of 3 schools, I believe, 1 in 3 schools don't have Black or Latino teachers, period. And so looking at those numbers, it's really staggering in a city that's supposed to be uplifting and celebrating its diversity. And so that's where that demand is coming from.
So you have this amazing week that goes on, right? And then at the end, you have this teen conference. So what happens in the teen conference, and what do kids get to discuss, or youth, I should say, get to discuss?
So they were given a platform to be able to talk about their experiences. They were also exposed to community organizers and poets from the community to actually help them kind of create a picture of what it looks like to be celebrated for being Black, for being Latinx, and being part of the African diaspora. And so when you give the youth a platform, they will tell you what they want and how they feel. It also informs us how we move forward, not just in informing the DOE about its policies, but also how we need to treat our children within this space. I will also add, my issue is we don't have Black and Latinx faculty of color when they get to higher ed. So how are we preparing children to be college ready in a system when we're not exposing them to people that look like them? How are we going to ensure that they're going to be successful in college when they have even less access to Black and brown faculty? And so it's really important. It's a responsibility and a mandate of the Department of Education to have both Black and Latino teachers, administrators, leaders that will help support our children moving forward.
And what has been the response of the Department of Education? Obviously, you highlighted a great disparity here. A lot of people were not even aware of the huge disparity that occurs in New York City schools as well. What's the response of DOE, given the fact that you're raising this up?
Do you want to speak some more on that?
Yes. I was actually present at a town hall yesterday with the chancellor. I think the DOE right now, currently with the chancellor, it's a little bit, it's a great time for somebody that's Latino to be the face moving forward. Our concern has been that he's been around for 8 to 9 months and no strong policies have been put in place. So there's a lot of talk about equity. There's a lot of talk about being anti-racist, but it isn't happening in schools, and children are still being categorized and labeled by tests, by different assessments that aren't holistic. There's still these discipline policies. Parents are still getting limited access letters, not even being able to engage with leaders in schools. And so we're here to say that that needs to really there needs to be an end to it, and that this chancellor has an opportunity to really change the landscape of education moving forward in New York City.
And I think our push from the community is to stay on top of it, stay active. This week of action is an opportunity to bring things to the forefront, but the work is not done. There are educators, parents, organizers, and parents all in one who are doing this work all year. And the week of action is an opportunity to bring it to the forefront. It's both a celebration and a call to action at the same time, but the work needs to continue. And so, like Clara said, there's a lot of plans out there. There's a lot of promises out there, but those things won't come into fruition without accountability. And so it's up to all of us to keep holding the fire up, okay, this plan came out, now what? When's it happening? Who's doing it? And making sure that they're also responding to the community, because the plans are not always responsive to what the community is actually asking for. They just sound good. Right. And so it's up to all of us to make sure that as these plans and promises come out, that we're following up, holding them accountable as much as possible, and letting them know when it's actually not what we're asking for.
You talked about yesterday having a meeting and being able to see where the chancellor was yesterday at the town hall meeting. What do you say to the public about getting involved and really this call to action? How can they be a part of this call to action, and what are some of the plans that you have going forward, given the fact that you've got some real serious work ahead of you?
Yeah. So the DOE kind of presents itself to having all of these different opportunities, particularly for parents to get involved. They actually changed the name of the department that talks about engagement. Now it's Family and Community Empowerment, right? So again, this chancellor is trying to really advocate for the empowerment of educators, the empowerment of parents and administrators to come together and really implement some sort of change. However, yesterday in that dynamic of a town hall, and I will say town halls can be a place where there's an adversarial relationship and power structures are really put in place. That was what I witnessed. I witnessed somebody that was in a position of power that was not really engaging with the community, that was using their position to silence some of the concerns that we had as a community in East Harlem. And so I do have a little bit of a concern. There are mechanisms in place. So currently there's openings for community education councils, which are technically our boards, where elected parents are part of the DOE conversation. You also can get involved in your schools. I've become involved as a parent in terms of meeting with educators. There's no better way to move this forward unless educators and folks from the community are really coming together to talk about these issues and supporting our children, first and foremost.
Well, we have the information at the bottom of the screen for people to get in touch with you guys, and certainly we know that there's much work to do, and you got to come back and let us know how things are progressing. Glad to have you both, and thank you for coming.
Thank you
for having us.
All righty, taking a quick break. Stay with us. We got more Open coming up right after this.